Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Last Best Hope for Conversation, a Babylon 5 podcast. I really should have created a shorter introduction. I am Jesse Jackson, and joining me in the CNC are Lou and Karen. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
I'm okay. Had a bit of a sinus infection over the last few days, but feeling much better now, and I super want to talk tonight.
Great.
Well, I am looking forward to tonight. Tonight, we are talking Soul Hunter. This is the official second episode of season 1, not counting the pilot. A mysterious alien who steals the souls of the living arrive on the station, putting Delene's life in danger. Is the official synopsis. Let's start. Karen, what were your initial thoughts of this one?
I enjoyed this episode very much. It was pretty tropey as far as genre television goes. I mean, the alien comes to do something and you have to stop him, and then the same type of alien comes to help you. You know, it's not like the exact same plot as other stuff, but it's definitely one of those familiar-ish plots. And I thought they executed it very well here. I had a few tiny little things that bugged me. The first Soul Hunter, like super diva.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he was very dramatic and over the top. And I had some technical issues too, which I'll get into later when we talk about it. I love that Richard Briggs was in this episode, his first episode. And when I looked up background information, I was super sad that he died in 2004.
Yeah.
So that was something that...
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Specifically, one of the quotes he had that when we get to this was very, very painful when you heard him saying it, because knowing that he had been gone.
Yeah.
Lou, how about you?
I quite enjoyed this episode. It had, like Karen said, it was kind of tropey, but it works. You know, tropes are a trope for a reason, because they do work. There was a great cold open, this ship flying towards the space station through the jump gate. So that was a great setup. And the overall episode, I think, was a great lever to introduce some background for Delene. It was weird that Londo and Jakar weren't there, because they're such bombastic characters that they put the Spinal Tap 11 on the dramatic beats, so they weren't there. So the episode was a lot, in some ways, even though the stakes seemed very high, it felt a little more low key because those two characters weren't in there.
They're so bigger than life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
now,
exactly. And
do you think that they maybe weren't in it because, and this is like, you know, fakey background stuff, but because they knew the Soul Hunter was there?
That's probably as good as an explanation as any.
Yeah.
I would think that the show would have probably have said that as well. But the other thing that was kind of tropey for me is the soul receptacles. They look sort of like miniaturized versions of the spheres that they used in Star Trek when I think it was Tomorrow Was Yesterday, when Kirk and some of the crew members exchanged their consciousness with these people, advanced people. So there was that aspect to it as well. And I just find the concept of these Soul Hunter beings just fascinating overall. And I'm hoping to see more of them in the coming seasons or episodes.
Yeah,
I love that they were almost polar opposites, the two Soul Hunters that we saw. And that really made the episode better, even. That they were just so completely different, yet they had a similar life mission. They were just crazy different.
Yeah, because often, whether you're a rabbi or a priest or a preacher or or something, a different bedside manner or different thoughts. I agree. J. Michael Straczynski wrote this one. He was very proud of it when in the online we're going to start out right with the controversy. He got a lot of crap from online people saying that this was a blatant ripoff of Star Trek II and Spock's Contra. And he was like, no, there's other things. This is not unique to Star Trek. And he ended up getting like, okay, watch some science fiction besides Star Trek, and just everything is not based on Star Trek.
It's like Simpsons did it. And also, there's that saying that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Of course, your idea is going to come from a million different places. You're going to pull from life experiences, from things that you've seen, from books that you've read. Yeah. So, if it has any similarity, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, it even sort of had echoes of Forbidden Planet, which itself was based on Shakespeare's The Tempest. Right. So, I mean, the execution of how it was carried out might be familiar, but this concept is not something new.
One of the things I really liked about this was we saw a different side of Delene. Mm-hmm. She has been very reserved so far in the first episodes we've seen, and she was angry. She was, just this full-fledged, and I just thought that was pretty interesting to see that different side of her. Any thoughts on that, Lou?
Yeah, for sure. Like when she, like you said, to me, she almost seemed like a Vulcan in the first couple of episodes. So for her to have this emotional reaction was pretty dramatic. And I thought it was quite interesting to see, for sure. I really thought that the actor, I'm sorry, her name is escaping me right now. But
something?
Yeah.
Cerini, she carried that off quite well. Yeah. And especially like her makeup job is pretty good, but I still do think it kind of restricts her ability to properly emote. So she has to work around that, because
she does.
I kept on looking at her ears, because they're kind of distracting. I mean, the bald cap line on her forehead is bad enough, but those ears just don't really.
That they're
distracting.
They're in the wrong place, right? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, but she did a really good job this episode. So that was quite a interesting scene.
Yeah,
I concur 100%. I think seeing her ramp it up so far. I mean, it's like she went from 2 in the first 2 episodes on the laid back scale to like 1,000 in this one. So it was surprising. When I watched it, I was like, "What is she yelling?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was surprising, but I also thought that, and like Lou was saying, she's got all the makeup on. So in order to, she has to commit like 1,000% to get those feelings communicated. So I thought it was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And I think the question, right, is, she believes that kind of in reincarnation, right? A version of that soul comes back and is in other ways. And you also, she's thinking that these beings are stopping the full cycle of life, that, you've imprisoned this person. And what I like about the show is they don't tell you what the right answer is. It's up to you to decide, was she right to be, at that end where she's cracking all those little shells and you see, the special effects kind of, is that an actual, is that a soul going into the nether region, or is that just something else? So I really like that.
Yeah, in fact, I'm so sorry. In fact, one of the things I really liked about this is that it almost spelled out, no one's right, no one's wrong. How you go about it might be right or wrong.
Yeah.
But the theory of like all these like intangible things, like how your soul works and stuff, nobody has the right answer to that. And they really did make it clear. They showed like 3 completely different perspectives on it.
Yeah.
And talking of Delene, I just want to mention this while we're here. I want to know why it's surprising that she's a member of the Grey Council and on B5. So I'm planting that here, as in, why is that a shock that a member of the council would be put on Babylon 5? But anyway.
No, I think that is a question they want you to ask. I mean, because when you're when they're talking about that, and he seems so shocked, and she like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think that's a really important question for us to think about later. And what is that going? And we also hear a lot about, why didn't humans know about these soul hunters? It seems like we've been going to space for a while in this, and clearly none of the humans were like, oh, who's this person? We've never seen these person, before. And that's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah. It's almost as if the soul hunters don't consider human souls worth capturing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's the inference you can draw.
That's a kind of tropey thing too, is that, humans are the good guy, but they're also just not in the hierarchy of like higher beings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, that, how come Earth has never heard of it? And one of the things, and I'll say this as a caveat, I went on the Lurker's Guide, like you said. All the JMS Speaks part is super interesting for this one.
Yes.
But part of it was that they were saying that maybe Earth, and he's just theorizing here, maybe Earth had heard of soul hunters, but just as a concept, and they didn't understand. They just heard it like fables or something.
Good.
But everyone should go to the Lurker's Guide.
Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of reminds me of potentially they could have been like the Stephen King series, The Outsider, where the creature takes over the person's body. Maybe that's where that kind of folklore on Earth came from.
That's absolutely. Yeah. We do get one of our remaining, this is not the last major person. We still haven't seen Bill Mummy yet, but Dr. Franklin coming in. I was really happy when I saw him because back in the day, my wife and I were big Days of Our Lives fans. Mm-hmm. And he had a major part in Days of Our Lives.
Duel. As us in the know used to call it.
Yeah, and he was
I used to watch Duel as well.
Yeah, he was really, really good. And, I also smiled. I hope both of you did when he arrived on the Starliner Asimov.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was
like yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Kind of a nice thing. So we get an interesting background. It's a younger doctor. He seems to be really excited about working here, doing this. What are your thoughts on the doctor so far? And I'll start with you, Luke.
Instantly, from the first frame I saw him, I said, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Like he just has that vibe to him, right? So he just seemed very warm, down to earth. Obviously has some background with Sinclair, and he's he just seems a very good personality for being a doctor. He's very open, warm, and you just take to him quite a bit. So I found and I think he'll be a good counterpoint against the Russian.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I should know the characters.
Yeah, Susan. Yeah, Ivanova.
Susan Ivanova. Yeah, because she's so cold and tightly wound up, and he's just basically wide open. So their conversations about death and life and how short it is and all that was good. And I kind of had to laugh when she said, because I'm Russian or something, So I said, boy, this is a little stereotypical nowadays, but, I kind of get it. But, I really liked him. Hopefully we'll get to see more of him as the show goes on. But instantly likable character.
Yeah, I really agree. Karen?
Yeah, same. Where the first Doctor seemed just like a caricature of a doctor, Briggs really does a great job here portraying like a human, really kind of personable, casual, but also serious, very layered character.
Yeah, the actor died in 2004. He was only 44 years old. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow.
He was the first major. I think he died before the guy who played Jakar. I'm not sure. I may have gotten those two mixed up, but he was very unexpected. The actor who played Jakar, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but had died of lung cancer, and knowing that Richard Briggs had died so young, the and you talked a little about this, Lou, where Susan says, "From stars we come, to the stars we return. From now until the end of time, we therefore commute this body to the deep." And he says, "It's also brief, isn't it? Typical human lifespan is almost 100 years, but it's barely a second to compare to what's out there. It wouldn't be so bad if life didn't take so long to figure out. Seems you just start to get it right, and then it's over." Right. And knowing that he had died so young, hearing that kind of, man.
May I ask what he died of?
He had an aortic aneurysm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a shock because he's so young.
Yeah.
Like he's probably one of the younger cast members, I would think.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. He's in the middle there, but that's interesting. I kind of wish I had known that beforehand when I was watching that scene, because I kind of get that vibe when I watch Stand By Me with River Phoenix.
Yes.
At the end when he disappears.
Yes.
Like, and then Richard Dreyfuss says but he gutted it out and blah blah blah. But that moment where he fades from the screen, that's like, wow, that just has that resonance to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And the Stardust stuff is a common theme too. I mean, we saw that recently. I don't know if you guys watched Midnight Mass, but there was a couple of monologues about dying and returning to Stardust as well. We were made of star stuff and that. So that kind of talk is always, it always resonates.
Yeah.
For sure.
And we do get that great line where he says, she says it wouldn't matter if it was 200 years, it would still be too short. And he goes, "You're a pessimist." And she goes, "I'm Russian." So that was a great line.
Yeah.
I did wonder, I did have my nitpick and my hand wave, right, is, okay, this person died, no family, and we're going to waste a torpedo shell to put his body out into space.
Right?
Just seems like, and so in my mind, I said, well, maybe like, they cremate it, they scatter the ashes, and the torpedo comes back. I don't know, but it just seemed like a waste. I mean, made for a very dramatic moment that, these people are doing there, but this isn't Spock in an empty, photon torpedo tube, right? That this is just some random guy. So I did think about that.
Could it maybe have been because he was murdered?
Yeah.
On Babylon 5, that
maybe
they felt it was their fault, even though he's a criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally is a shyster.
Yeah.
Down there playing the cup and ball game. But I just felt like that's a lot of fanfare.
There was a lot of fanfare. We ended up, some of the things we got 2 different soul hunters, both of them going. I did like the ending where, the second soul hunter's like, "What happened to my brother's collection?" Like, "Oh, I don't know. Who could tell?" What else about this? And in a lot of ways, it's a very basic storyline, right? That you guys talked about the trope, just really well executed. What are other things that came to mind? You had mentioned there were a couple of things, Karen.
Okay. Where did he get his soul gathering device?
Yes, that's a good point.
They pull him off of the ship, take him right to the isolab.
Yes.
He gets out of the isolab, and he goes to get Delene, takes her into a room, and voila! Let me just pull this out of my pocket.
Yes.
I just assumed he went back to ship at some point. But,
yeah.
Oh, maybe. Okay. So in the downtime that we didn't watch, I was just
yeah.
Okay, that thing is huge. It's like a spotlight size thing. And where did it come from? I mean, I feel like we should see him like digging in the wall to pull out wires and stuff so they can make this thing.
Yeah.
But that was the thing that kind of stopped me. I had to pause it and just go, okay, I got to get this out of my head because it's taking me out and I'm thinking about it too much.
So I guess my question was around that whole sequence where, because they didn't really lay it out clearly, but does the person actually have to be at near death in order for this machine to work, or did he? Because they talked about her blood loss, so I assumed that he was bleeding her out, like kind of like a vampire, right? And just so he could capture her soul at the moment of death.
Yeah.
But that wasn't laid out, so I had to infer that. But again, the whole concept of this race of people gathering souls is just fascinating. And it also puts an interesting spin on things, because from their perspective, the soul actually dies when the person dies, whereas we, of course, believe that our soul continues after death. So that was something I wish the show had explored. Yeah, so that's very interesting. And again, I don't know if this is going to come up later in the series again, but besides providing some background for Delene, it raises a lot of interesting questions that I hope will get answered down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. We get Sinclair back in the ship. Which, you know, is I think at this point you're like, okay, any chance he's got to get in a fighter, he's going to. If you, and Karen went there's a whole lot of discussion offline about, well, you know, you have to fly so much to get flight pay and everything. But the reality is,
stay certified.
I think they are trying to push this guy doesn't want to command a space station. He wants to get back into space and everything. So I thought that was really interesting. I did miss Jakar and Alando because they're always a lot of fun. But we did get to learn our new doctor, and we got to have this whole, and the deepening of that Sinclair has something to do with the Mambaris. There is some kind of connection there that we don't know yet, and they're implying it pretty strong.
I am super intrigued by his whole role in Earth Mambari War.
Because she even said, Delene even said when she was revived that we were right about you, or something like that. And again, they're dropping a breadcrumb there. Who the we are. Maybe it's something to tie with her role as a Satai. Which, like Karen pointed out earlier, if Sinclair knows her as well as it seems rather weird that he doesn't know about her. But this role could have predated their knowing each other, I suppose. But it seems, but they would have kind of known who was the government of the planet they were fighting against, like who were the big players. And if she's as big as it sounds like she is, it's kind of a weird gaffe that I'm waiting for a better explanation for.
What I don't think worked is the supposedly robot looking alien that's kind of in charge of the all the underground stuff.
So you mean the praying mantis?
Yes, the praying mantis looking character. Don't think that worked really well. I believe he doesn't show up much longer, but if I remember correctly, but I thought that was a little bit of cheesy, and I was like, it would almost been better just to have. I mean, I appreciate the fact that they wanted to go alien races, but it almost would have been better to have someone doing that.
Yeah, they should have done just a mask or some makeup or something.
It was my hand waving.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it didn't bother me too much, and again, like the CGI overall is of the era,
right?
But I do appreciate the ship designs. Like the Soul Hunter ship was cool. I really like that fighter that Sinclair fights. The way that those rockets, the gimbals,
they can stop.
The gimbals rotating that. That the grappling hook was a little weak, but but
so
it was good that he didn't get it on first try. He had to call a couple times. So
what are we feeling about Sinclair and Mike O'Hara's performance? A little less wooden? Are you guys getting a little more warm to him?
Yeah, I like him a little less better.
Yeah. He doesn't have the, and maybe this will develop, but he doesn't have the comedic timing with the punchlines to a lot of the things that he's doing. Like you said, well, that's just one of life's mysteries. Maybe it's just a changing an acting style, because, you know, if somebody like Ryan Reynolds or somebody does that today, that would get a big laugh, or you'd get or smile. With him, it just falls like a wet egg or something. It just kind of goes splat. So but the rest of the stuff that he does, like the dramatic and the more touchy feely stuff, I mean, he's pretty good with it. But his humor, his comedic timing is not quite there for me.
I'd like him way better with each episode, though. I mean, the first one, I was like, okay, well, first he's a misogynist and he's snarky. But there's way less misogyny starting with that first episode after the pilot.
Yeah. And I'm finding his desire to get back into fighter all the time kind of enduring too.
Okay. Yeah.
Agreed.
Like, hey, I want to get, like my boss in my day job, like, is unhappy. We moved into a new building and, our owner put him in an office. You're a VP. I want you to have an office, and he hates it. He wanted his cubicle on the floor. And he and so I get that feeling. Speaking of, I think Jerry Dole as Garibaldi does play the humor and everything really well. I that's a character that I really enjoy. This is a guy like.
Unfortunately, he's been pretty sidelined since the pilot.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree.
Hopefully he'll get his time to shine, which I understand he does.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, we didn't see Talia or Veer. We haven't seen Lanier yet, or Jakar or Londo. So this was very heavy. The guest stars, our two different soul hunters, really had a lot to do with it.
I think it benefited, though, because that meant that the story could be fully formed. So they didn't just shoehorn in characters just because they were likable or whatever, Hey, there's no room for them, take them out.
I'm curious at this point, Jesse, is this show based, is this format of the show, is this pretty standard for each episode? Because a lot of shows run like a B, sometimes even a C plot line. This show seems very much more like a A and maybe a half a B plot line, and because usually the B plot line kind of reinforces the A one, and it did in a way this way with the street hustler who got killed, but it wasn't tied in directly, or the characters that were like, they were more observers of a situation rather than being actively participating in that storyline, which I always find effective. And just curious if that's how that's going to play out.
So I'm trying to think. It feels like there is usually really only one main storyline with maybe just maybe a second storyline. That now I think as the series progresses, they get a little bit better. Or not necessarily better, changing and a little more complex. But I think this is, because this one, like even last episode, we had the political things going on. We had a lot of the other, we had a few more subplots. This one was pretty much, in a lot of ways, it's Delene's episode along with the two guest stars. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fascinating concept, a race of soul hunters. And I know I keep circling back to that.
No, it is.
I just think it's such a great idea that I just hope it's not squandered in the series. We'll have to see. Don't tell me.
No, I won't.
And I know I make it feel like I'm asking.
No. I know you're not. And the idea, right, that they sense that somebody is going to the next plane and then they come, which kind of gives you they're almost a vulture, right? That they're hovering for this. And the idea that a lot of aliens were just getting the heck out of Dodge. They even talked about that.
Yeah.
Because they were scared.
Yeah, the mythology is very interesting, but the execution of what we saw, like, Karen was talking about that machine. Yeah. Like, it just doesn't really jive, because, like, how was he, as a single individual, able to get by Delene? And it sounded like they had like a phalanx of guards around this dying person. Like, how did he get around them and take him somewhere private to be able to do this? And so there's a lot of logistic stuff that they've glossed over, or not kind of, they did gloss over. And I don't know if that's intentional or they just, the restrictions of the episode budget and time and blah, blah, blah. Because in some ways, this almost could have been a two-parter. But
I think they could have done that. And I know they're not spoilers, but they do go back to these characters in the future, so that they do not abandon that totally.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. I know that we haven't spent a lot of time, but as I said, this was a pretty standard story. Anything else we need to talk about, or any, kind of things you're already saying? You're wondering about the Grey Council. What does that mean? Why is it a big deal that someone from the Grey Council is an ambassador? That doesn't seem like it necessarily would not compute. So you want to know about that. What other things are we thinking that are important?
And the thing about Sinclair, what is his involvement in all this?
Yeah.
Why did the Minbari think he was so important? Because to us, he's just like the commander of this outpost, but to her, he's like, and that also sheds a little bit of light on in the pilot, at least, their relationship, where it makes me feel like if I were to go back and see it, I would see that Delene is taking this heightened interest in him because she knows that he's important to her race or whatever, instead of them just being close. There's an actual reason that she's talking to him all the time. So yeah, it's very intriguing.
So in the nomenclature of cold or hot, you're hot. So yes.
Oh.
So yeah, as you guys used to say on Farscape, Jesse, you were really watching the right things.
Okay.
So in this case, you guys are very much watching the same things. So good.
And Lou, they said
Yes.
something about getting a pass for the jump gate.
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Yeah.
They did. And I was like, oh, Lou.
Good. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I sent Lou. There is a non-spoiler, as always on the internet, talking about the mechanics of the, and so there is mystery. No one knows who built the original ones,
Okay. Yeah.
and then races figured out how to duplicate it. And there is a lot of, as we talked about, it is a little bit like a toll tag that you get charged and you have credits against it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I understand also that larger ships actually have their own jump drive as well.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, we will see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the only other thing that was like another breadcrumb is that they dropped another line about the president. So I'm assuming that at some point the president is going to be an important thing. And was this switching up doctors, was it just due to the unavailability of the original actor, or did they just want to recast the part, or what happened?
Yeah,
there?
it was actually one of the things was the original actor wasn't available, so they decided to recast. And then, as we talked about, one of the beauties of this is everyone who had anything to do with a Vorlon now is no longer on the station. Right. So this was something kind of good for him to see and know. And I do think that Richard Briggs brings an energy and enthusiasm. Another thing that I really liked, and they implied this a little bit, and this is certainly not spoilers, is they will talk about he is not the only doctor on the ship, the station. He is the chief medical officer, but there are other, because it seems like sometimes on Star Trek, Coy was the only doctor, and then there's other nurses versus but in this case there are multiple doctors that will work for that. So good.
They changed that a little on the Next Generation, where Gates had like medical assistants, and not nurses, which I like. So that's nice to know that he's not just the solo act.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, next episode we're going to talk to is Born to the Purple, which is a Londo eccentric, focused episode. So I think you guys will enjoy that.
Lou won't like seeing the hair.
Yes, you won't see the hair. Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about before we tell everyone how to reach us?
Yeah, just quickly, the two Soul Hunters, the actors that played them are both prolific voice actors. So if you've heard their voices anywhere, it's probably from something they've done. However, the main Soul Hunter, the bad guy, quote unquote, he was on an episode of Voyager called Bliss, where they both get sucked into this thing that like makes them hallucinate and stuff. And he's like the other ship that was sucked in, and they work together to track her.
Okay.
If you have seen this episode, you picture the guy.
Yeah.
Right away.
Okay.
So I mean, if you're genre people, you've seen Voyager, and that you might recognize him from that. But they're both like all over the place: video games, animation, voiceovers for like overseas. Like spaghetti westerns almost. They're doing like voiceovers for the Italian actors. I mean, they're all over the place. So
good. Well, I appreciate
now that you
that.
say that, it just struck another memory node for me. People are probably going to get sick of this, but I'm going to, and I apologize, but it reminds me of those two soul hunters kind of remind me of Vians from the Star Trek episode The Empath, where they take Spock and McCoy and them and torture them to get this empath to heal them. So their makeup was somewhat similar to that. And yeah, they kind of remind me of the Vians from The Empath as well. So yeah, it was, God, I just find it such a fascinating concept.
It's genre TV. I mean, that's something you kind of know is going to happen in genre TV.
Yeah.
And, the other thing you touched on a little bit, but I'm going to re-stress, one of the things that I like about this series, and as we continue to go, is they let you decide the answers. They don't necessarily, in this case, do souls live on? Or do they die with the body, and what they do? And, the soul hunter honestly believes that this soul will die, and by preserving it, I am letting these significant people continue to have their version of immortality. And, Delene is a very believe that the souls come back, that they are very important. And you will come back to, this will come up shortly, Mambaris do not kill Mambaris. That is one of the, they are very sacred about the thou shalt not kill. And so the idea of him taking that soul to her, you are killing that. You are stopping them from moving on to the next life and to their next life. And that's just horrible to her.
Right. Yeah. Which raises another interesting question about the soul hunters, because they say their big purpose in doing this is to prevent the loss of knowledge of these people that have lived. Yet they don't seem to share that knowledge with anybody. Right. They kind of hoard it for themselves. So they're not nearly as altruistic as they're trying to present themselves.
And then they're trophy hunters.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's almost like as if they
collecting skills.
Yeah, or like I was thinking that you'll hear one of the tropes, right, is someone will steal a masterpiece painting, and then you can't display it where anyone can see it, so it'll just be in their little private lair where only they can see the painting, versus sharing it with everyone can see it and enjoy it. Well, they all have their own collection, and not like they are keeping this in a central place where, oh, well, let me go talk to this great, orator and do this. So I
it's
think
not
that
like they have a soul museum or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. All right. If someone wants to reach you, Karen, how can they?
Are we not giving a grade?
Oh, yes. I thought, yes, we want any final thoughts and grades. Yes.
I'm going to give it 8 little cellophane balls.
Very nice. And Lou?
I'll give it 7.5 soul balls.
Ah, nice. Well, I'm going to give it 7.5 unnecessary torpedo caskets. I like that. Yeah, I think this is one that they're still trying to find their way. It was a really good story, and if you talk to anyone, most people will say that season 1 is mostly set up for seasons 2 through 5. Right. I don't feel that way. I think it all is. There are a few more self-contained stories, but they're all kind of building to letting us know things. So good. All right. Cool. Now then, Karen, do you want to tell how we can find you? And thank you for reminding me.
No problem. Like I said, I took notes.
Yes, you did.
You can find me on the Twitter machine as Alveria, Aleveria, and on Instagram as Alveria, and on BookBub as Alveria, and there's a link in my bio to my blog, at which you can find all my other links.
Very nice. And Lou?
You can find me on Twitter at King Podcast, on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, and there I've got all my Stephen King podcast episodes up, and I'm still transferring over a writer episode podcast that I do as well. I've got interviews with a lot of genre writers, most notably Robert J. Sawyer, who's a big the dean of Canadian science fiction. So that's what I'm working on now, and I'm going to be getting back into that. Probably starting in March, once I've transferred everything over to YouTube. Been an interesting experience. Now I'm having to start to get into graphical design to learn how to do title cards and stuff like that. So, yeah. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And I'll be doing reviews for things that capture my interests, primarily Stephen King, obviously, and genre stuff. Maybe the occasional TV show, movies, I don't know. There's a couple of shows. I don't know have you seen the trailer for From, which has Harold Perrineau from Lost, and it's from Lost. It's basically like where these family drives into this town because they get lost and they try to leave and they keep coming back to this town, which is not a new concept. But then at night, there's these, it seems like vampires. So it's a mashup of a couple things. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. So I'm going to have to see if that's worthy of doing a podcast about.
Oh, interesting.
I have to watch an episode or two and see.
I haven't seen the average of that. I did binge Reacher. On Amazon
we're not
Prime.
quite done that yet.
And I enjoyed the heck out of it. I really, and I was,
Karen for the audio people, she's fanning herself.
Yes.
He
was one of the Ninja Turtles in one of the live action movies.
Can't see him as a Ninja Turtle, but as Reacher. Oh my God. I watched that little trailer for it and I was like, hello, alpha male. I am right there for you.
He was Hawk on the Titans series, the Titan series.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, he is very good in this. I like the Tom Cruise movies. I didn't have a problem because I had not read any of the books beforehand, and so I know that a lot of the fans were unhappy because Cruise is very short compared to the character, and this Alan Rickman is much more what they think he looks like, and he is not just a good-looking guy, and he does have the body for it. He really plays the kind of smart ass and the intelligence really well. So that's my recommendation of the week. If you have Amazon Prime, check that out. It is.
I also recommend. I've not seen it, but I recommend.
It doesn't mean you recommend anything. Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We're not quite done it yet, but and if you like horror, there's a Archive 81 on Netflix, which is pretty cool. It's kind of a Rosemary's Baby.
I saw that.
Meets Session 9.
Okay.
You're familiar with that horror movie, so it's psychological horror, which I like.
Okay.
And so it's got some timey-wimey stuff in it. So it's like kind of like if you like Dark, the 3 season series from Netflix as well, the German series. Okay. That was a fantastic series. Very heartbreaking in the last couple episodes. Jeez. So there's so much stuff out there. It's hard to watch it all now.
Well, please, we can edit this out. I don't know if you're going to end up editing or but anytime you think of something that you go, hey, I'd like to get the 3 of us together and discuss, let us know and we can make that happen.
We can just pop one in.
Sure.
Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that would be fun.
Yeah,
all right.
For sure.
And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. My big news. Last week, I was able to interview Brian Koppelman from Billions. We spent about 45 minutes talking. He told the story that his very first record player he owned of himself when he was like a teenager, The River, was the first album he played.
Nice.
And he talked about how long he has been a Springsteen fan. Really interesting interview, great guy. And so I was really happy that after about a year and a half of he and I kind of exchanging emails and talks, he said, hey, let's visit. And so that was kind of that's cool. Been my biggest get,
Nice.
That's a pretty good guy.
Let's get some trivia. What was your favorite? What was your first album? Whoever. Because I know mine.
Yeah. My first album I bought with my own money was an 8-track of Elton John's greatest hits.
Awesome. Okay, Lou.
Well, you guys may not know this because you should from one song, but because I'm in Canada,
right?
I bought a Canadian band, and it was the album "Not Fragile" by Bachman Turner.
Oh yeah,
BTO. I love BTO.
We know that.
Yeah.
My first album that I bought I saved up for and I bought with my own money was a cassette
Yes.
A Foreigner 4.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, one of my very favorite albums ever. Yeah. Jukebox Hero is on it.
Oh, yeah. So
isn't Cold as Ice on there too?
Yep.
So Lou, there is I listen to the sports station here in Dallas called The Ticket, and we have, because of streaming, there are people, really all over the world, but especially in the US and Canada. And there is a guy who lives in Canada, but is a big Dallas Cowboy fan. So he listens to The Ticket all the time. And this weekend is their annual, what they call ticket stock, which is basically a big party for all their listeners. And our friend is flying down from Canada. And so tomorrow night, we're meeting for dinner, and then we're going to go to my office in a conference room, and we're going to record for my How Many podcast. He has a list of the top Canadian music artists, and we're going to talk about how many of those would we figure significant. So once that happens, I will send that to you, because I think there's going to be some of them that, as American, we may not. Oh, I don't know that band. But Bachman Turner and Rope Drive.
Let me put a couple in your ear then, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, please.
Tragically Hip.
Yes. They're huge in Canada, aren't they?
Yes. The lead singer passed away about 2 years ago now from brain cancer, much like Neil Peart did from Rush. Yeah. And he did a cross Canada tour like in his last year. So it was quite emotional. And he's the iconography of a lot of people's teenage years growing up in Canada. And if you've heard their music, it's it's quite something different. So you've got them. Tragically Hip, big band up here. Yeah. BTO, of course. Guess Who?
Rush.
Who else am I missing? Rush. Yes.
And
Rush.
The band, a fair amount are Canadian.
Yeah. Yep, the band.
BNL. Yeah. Hello, Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters.
No, the Foo Fighters. I went to high school with one of the Foo Fighters.
Well, I think one of them's Canadian though.
Maybe.
But they're big Rush fans. Maybe that's why I'm confusing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those are probably the big ones. But I'm trying to think of any. Those are the big four. Okay. But Tragically Hip, Rush, Guess Who for sure.
Good.
If he doesn't have those on there, he's not a real Canadian.
Yes, I will make that note and talk to it. That's great.
You cannot ignore Helen Reddy.
No, Helen Reddy, absolutely.
Anne Murray.
Yeah.
I love Anne Murray.
Stompin' Tom.
Yeah. So, and because he asked me, should I just do rock and roll bands? And I go, no, I think you pick your 30 or 50 top Canadian artists, and then we'll have a fun discussion about
Brian Adams. Isn't Brian Adams?
Yes, Brian Adams is huge.
Yeah. So now you're getting poppy.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I'm just popping in my head. Sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah.
The good old hockey game.
Yeah. Very nice.
It's a great song.
To the listeners, if we're leaving all this in, I want to know what your first album was.
Yes, I want to hear that. We will keep this in, and we want to hear it. All right. Cool. Karen, Lou, as always, this is a blast. I have joy in my heart every time we get a chance to visit. This makes me very happy.
Like a heart.
Yeah. And so, you guys go check out the From trailer. See if you think that's worthy of
I will.
I pulled up his name on there. So
I will. Okay. I will check that out. All right, listeners, go get vaccinated, get boosted, be kind to each other, because that's how we're going to get through this. And we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Yep.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. The end.